QI, where tonight's show will be great, because our theme is greatness itself. Let's meet four giants of the game show genre. Great Scott, it's David Mitchell. Great balls of fire, Sean Locke. The great Panjandrum, Joe Brand. Oh, great, it's Alan Davis. And Sean goes.
Mr. Right, Mrs. Great, balls of fire.
Yeah, Joe goes.
Oh, yes, I'm the great pretender.
David goes. Oh, I just want to hear that for the rest of the evening, actually. And Alan goes.
Thank you for calling Great Eastern Railways. Your call is right. Thank you.
Very good. Excellent. Now, tell me about the great disappointment.
Pretender.
You've been talking to my husband.
How predictable you are.
I am.
Joe Brand. Yes, the great disappointment.
Was it something that afflicted many people?
Well, it was a surprisingly large number. When one thinks of expectations, for example, I mean, really delirious excitement about some enormous happening that will take place in the world, or a rebirth. A second coming is exactly right.
And there wasn't one.
Well, amazingly. There's a man called William Miller who discovered, by close scrutiny of the Bible, that Christ would come back in 1844 and scourge the world and clean the sanctuary, in the words of Daniel 8:4. And it wasn't like a minor cult. There were over 1 million Millerites who believed this. They sold their property, they sold their farms, they gave up everything, and they believed that it was all going to happen. And newspapers believed it. All kinds of people believed it. Their confidence was such that one man threw himself off a barn at exactly midnight, convinced that he would be scooped up and saved. He wasn't. You'll be astonished.
Oh, got a doctor.
Yeah, and this...
Jesus is here. No, I need a doctor.
Jesus didn't arrive, and it was known as the Great Disappointment.
Was this in America, by any chance?
How did you guess?
They won't learn, will they?
Well, no. They really won't, because what's so interesting is a lot of people haven't heard of William Miller, but although this great disappointment happened, his followers shaved off into different religions, of which you may have heard. For example, there was a woman who founded a religion called the Seventh-day Adventist that now has 15 million adherents in America. And she was a Millerite. And there was another man called Charles Russell who founded an even better-known religion, the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Well, they thought the world was going to end in about 1920, didn't they? Didn't they?
Yeah, well, that's
1920, they thought the world was going to end?
Part of what the apocalypse is the second coming. According to Revelations, the last trumpet sounds, there's a mighty wind, and Christ harrows hell, whatever that means, to harrow hell.
But I don't think those people ever really believe it's the end of the world. Because if you really did believe the world was going to end, you wouldn't wander around going, I think the world's going to end. You'd be just going, ah!
You'd be saying fancy a shag to that person you'd never dared say it to before. That's what most people in questionnaires asked, what
John
they do.
McCririck, in my case.
John McCririck, yes, exactly.
Can I just say, as far as that harrows hell thing, you just need to put a comma in that sentence. Christ harrows hell.
By the way, who had purple triangles in the concentration camps, the death camps?
Was it the Barney the dinosaur?
No. It is an odd thing. It's a thing most people...
Sorry, you're not saying purple triangle, you're talking about Equality Street.
No, you know, everyone knows.
Triangles are green.
So yellow stars for Jews, pink triangles for gay people, so I don't know which one I'm wearing, both. What I wouldn't wear is a purple triangle. Which was the purple
Christians?
triangle?
Gypsies?
No, well,
Gypsies?
not
Romanies?
gypsies.
Lesbians?
It was Jehovah's Witnesses.
Manchester United supporters?
No. It was Jehovah's Witnesses were also in those camps. They had purple triangles. It's just a weird thought. But anyway, right up to now, there is a new kind of wave of people who, in America who believe, and about 50% of Americans do believe that Christ will return. And they have a special word for it. a special word for this moment when their bodies will be removed suddenly by Christ, leaving only their clothes behind them. It's called the rapture, and it's enormous. In 1988, 4 million copies of Edgar Weisnant's book, 88 Reasons Why the Rapture Could Be in 1988 were sold. The rapture wasn't in 1988, you may remember. But www.raptureready.com has millions of hits a year, as well as offering you handy letters to leave behind for your non-saved friends and loved ones. It has a particularly good section called Oops, I Guess I Wasn't Ready. This list spells out the perils of the post-rapture world in which you are marked by the Antichrist and stung by enormous wasps.
But on the plus side, the price of clothing goes right down.
Yes, there is that. There's a handy quiz called Am I Rapture Ready?
Is there an advice of what sort of loose-fitting clothes to wear
so that
would be better so you won't get caught on anything? You wouldn't want to get whipped out of a jock strap really quickly. You want boxer shorts or something like that.
Well, you better be careful because apparently it's imminent.
Is it?
Oh. It is imminent, yeah. The
When you
rapture
say
is imminent.
Imminent, you mean this week, or...?
Oddly enough, they're not being that specific.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. We wouldn't want a second great disappointment, would we?
No, that would be
terrible.
I certainly would be disappointed.
No. Well, the great disappointment came in 1844 when Jesus confounded all expectations by failing to return in glory. Why are so many great men, though, short?
Are they really?
David, you've hit the nail on the head. Rem acu tetagisti, as they would say in Latin.
I'm sure they would.
Yeah.
It means nice one, son.
Yeah. That's absolutely right. In fact, Napoleon, people
Napoleon was short, wasn't he?
No, he was above average height.
Everyone was short in those
wasn't
days.
he?
Well,
He was 5'6", which was taller than
He
it
was
is now.
5'7", actually.
Oh,
yeah, average height was about 5'6"-ish.
So it's just the British who decided he was short. Put him down a bit.
Yes, it was particularly a cartoonist called Gilray. When we were at war with Napoleon, there was a famous one of George III with a little Napoleon based on Gulliver's Travels, like that. Ah. And he's actually saying, I cannot but conclude you to be one of the most pernicious little odious reptiles that nature ever suffered to crawl upon the surface of the earth. There.
It's a snappy.
It's a snappy one, isn't it? He was 3 inches taller than Nelson, for example. Nelson was 3 inches shorter than Napoleon. It's certainly true that...
Nelson was 5'4"?
Yeah.
Like Danny DeVito?
He was very, short chap.
No wonder they put him on such a big
So
column.
is that kind of...
Yes, he's tall in Trafalgar Square.
Is that short man syndrome a kind of retrospective thing, then, that we've kind of invented more recently and then just gone back and said they're all short?
Yeah. Some of them were short, though, there's no question. I mean, Stalin was surprisingly short. He was only 5'5". Mussolini was 5'6". Franco was 5'4".
5'4"?
Yeah.
They are all short, Steve.
But no, he hit the 5'8". Idi Amin was 6'4".
Yeah, big
That's
fella.
my height. Fidel Castro, 6'1". Mao was 5'9", which is rather tall for a Chinese person. So...
But mostly they're not judged on their height, are they?
No, they're not. They're not. But all I'm...
We'll let that go.
Yeah. All I'm saying, there seems to be historically no evidence that short people are more power-hungry, more tyrannical than people of average or tall stature.
Because you know how it came about, though, because it's just that one... It's probably the one thing that short people have got to cling on to. One day they might be a dictator. Well, and we've just taken that away from them. One little hope.
All this not being able to reach things from shells, one day will be made up for when I kill millions of people. And I can stand on their bodies.
Yeah.
Reach the jam.
Yeah.
Everybody knows somebody short in their life who's been particularly angry and abused his position of authority, and then you decide he's a bit like Hitler.
That's the point. You notice when a short
man
man has a tantrum
Yeah.
and says, oh, short man, Napoleon complex. Even
Tall
though-
man has a tantrum, you just leg it.
Exactly. I have to say, I'm rather shocked by this. Heightism does exist. Short people are paid less on average than tall people. The disparity is comparable in magnitude to race and gender. A survey of Fortune 500
They
companies...
should rise up.
Yeah. Hey. The chief executive officers of Fortune 500 companies, 90% are above average height, which is astounding, really. And 30% of those are over 6'2". You're the tallest 4%.
Every now and again, a little short fella breaks through.
Yeah. Oh, stop.
Escapes, gets away.
Yeah, yeah. But
Look at me!
it is rather shocking that there is this disparity. And of course, we always notice the powerful, short, rich man with a young, tall wife is
billionaire Bernie
She's
Ecclestone.
actually, I've seen her with him. She's actually much taller than that, above him.
Yeah, she's bending her knee there.
Yeah. I mean, he has to jump up to slap her on the bum. He can run through her legs.
And who's the couple on the left?
That's Carla Bruni and
Sarkozy. But at least the women have both got handbags that their husbands can fit in.
No, there isn't really any evidence that dictators are shorter than the rest of us. The Napoleon complex is a bit of a myth, it seems. So, now, some great men, on the contrary, are actually tall. For example, Charlemagne, the immensely charismatic, civilised, attractive 8th century king of the Franks, Holy Roman Emperor, founder of modern Europe. Now, our researchers have discovered that, in fact, we've been digging into your family trees in that sort of who-do-you-think-you-are way, and we've come up with some rather exciting news. See if you can guess which of you is descended from Charlemagne.
Well, civilised and attractive, it ain't me, is it? I think Alan.
Alan?
Well, is it all of us?
Yes. All of us, including
Because
me and including everyone in the audience and everyone watching at home, if they're European.
Because he was a love machine.
It's just mathematically certain. The fact is, you know how you have, obviously, everyone has 2 parents and 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents. It's that grain of rice on the chessboard thing, 8, 16. By the time you get back to the generations, just in the 13th century, you have more direct ancestors than there have ever been human beings. It's about 80 billion, the number, by the time you get back that far.
My brain's...
I know, well, all you have to do...
You have more ancestors than there are people there's ever been.
That's the point. The point is you can't. The point
It was
is
bound to happen on this show one
shared
day.
ancestors.
Oh, I see, right.
The point is they
Christ,
have to
it's
be
all-
shared.
Are your brothers here tonight?
Sorry?
Are your brothers here tonight?
I've only got one brother.
Oh, right.
And he's not.
I was going to say Phil and Grant. I thought they might be related to you.
Well, they will be.
Brothers, wouldn't that be great if they were your brothers? Wouldn't you love it?
It'd be a problem with that because they don't exist. I think that would be weird to find out you were related to someone fictional. You start to doubt your own existence.
Apparently, we all are.
Yeah.
Charlemagne's not fictional, he's just
No,
historical.
all our ancestors are... All our 80 billion ancestors... Not all of them, obviously.
We've got 80 billion ancestors, one of them's got to be Winnie the Pooh.
That's very odd. Yeah, it was a man called Mark Humphreys who was, in 1995 at Dublin University, was doing it, and he discovered that his wife was King Edward III's great-granddaughter 20 generations down the line. And he looked further into it, and of course he realised that so was Hermann Goering and Daniel Boone, the American explorer, pioneer. And then he kind of worked out the mathematics of it, and he's the one who's given us that.
I'm just thinking about Charlemagne. I think that would be a really good name for, like, an aftershave, wouldn't it? It would. Charlemagne.
Well, let's smell medieval.
I'm everybody. I'm everybody's daddy.
Oh, very true. We're all related to Charlemagne, it seems. Computer models have shown that anyone living in the 8th century who had plenty of children and grandchildren is likely to be related to everyone living in Europe today. So tell me, what good did the Great Fire of London do?
Pretender.
I'm risking it here, but I don't care. Wiped out the plague.
Oh, dear Joe. It was taught in school, so you've got every reason to think it, but it's just simply not true. There's no evidence whatsoever. Apart from anything else, the plague was already over.
Well, yeah, but it wiped out the conditions in which it could have come back.
Not really, because the plague was mostly in the suburbs, not in the city. The city was not the place that was most affected by the plague, but it was the place that was destroyed by the fire. By the time September 1666 happened, which was the fire, there were very few deaths. It had gone down to... It had almost ended. No one quite knows why it ended, but it certainly wasn't the fire.
Did it make it easier for them to knock down a load of places that they had their eye on?
Essentially, that's the point. It gave the chance to Christopher Wren to get some church building done, especially St Paul's, of course.
They had lots of grandiose plans about turning London into a grid or a spiral or that, and then they kind of thought about it for ages and then went, put it back as it was.
Yes.
All squiggly lines and weird corners, please.
Yeah, which we love. It is one of the
Yeah, but I think Christopher Wren was a bit depressed about it.
Yeah. Well, the best thing about the Great Fire of London was that it got Wren an opportunity to build St Paul's. What it didn't do was clear the city of plague, however. Now, Samuel Pepys famously buried his Parmesan cheese to protect it from the Great Fire. But why does cheese taste better when it's grated?
Well, sometimes it does, but if you get one of those catering bags of grated cheese, if you should be working for a catering company and happen to steal one, for example, from a store...
Yes.
What sort of twit would do that?
When you get it home and you put it on your toast, it tastes rank, horrible, dry, skanky old cheese, so...
Well, that might be because grated cheese, yes, does taste better.
Only freshly grated.
Yeah, freshly grated. It's got more surface area for the
Better
tongue.
or stronger?
Well, there's more intense. That's absolutely right. Well, what about Parmesan?
Yeah.
When that's grated, that smells of what?
Cheese.
No. Have you not noticed?
Vomit.
Vomit, yeah. Yeah, it does smell of vomit. And I mean, it really does. It has two short-chain fatty acids called butyric and isovaleric acid. They're sort of sweaty feet chemicals that body odour and various other things have. And interestingly, human beings being what they are, if you have two bottles of the same, those two fatty acids in them, so identical smell, and you label one Parmesan and you label the other one vomit, people will say, oh, I quite like that one with the Parmesan, and the other one they go, yeah, like that.
I've always seen the thing about Parmesan, you know when you buy Parmesan, I've never understood why it has a sell-by date on it. Because it just never goes off, does it? You could put it on a rooftop in Nairobi for a year. It just did nothing. Why do they have to have a sell-by date?
So that you will destroy it and buy some more. So it's like they say, you buy cheese at the supermarket and it says consume within 2 days of opening or something.
Yes,
and it's
a cheese
that's... a vast amount of... How much cheese do you think I'm going to get through? Yeah. Why? It's fine.
Yeah.
They know it's fine.
Plus it has a label on it saying 20 years aged.
Yeah,
so, I mean,
exactly. And what you've sold 2 days before it's completely inedible. You sell it to me.
It is true.
It's gone off already. I mean, cheese, basically, hasn't it?
Well, that's its point, exactly. Yeah. It is the celebration of what happens when milk goes off big-time styly.
Yeah. It should just...
I think
you should work for the Milk Marketing Board. Get some lovely English milk gone off big-time styly. I'll have a milk gone off from big-time styly and tomato sandwich. That's a brilliant description. That's the best description of cheese I've ever heard. I was just thinking, though, David, rather than having a sell-by date on cheese, they should just have the date that cheese becomes poisonous. And then you know when to stop eating it.
Do they know that date when cheese becomes poisonous?
It's a traffic light system.
Is it a global thing, 2 days before the rapture? When cheese becomes poisonous.
Or maybe it's the day they've worked out everyone in the world's related to Peter Andre. And they go, that's when it becomes poisonous.
At which point people will happily eat it and die.
Yeah.
But also, aren't those sell-by dates are just overcautious, aren't they? You could probably leave it.
Yeah, they're just
for
covering
ages.
themselves in case you get ill.
Get it out the bin a couple of weeks later. And it'll be fine.
Put it down your pants, go in the sauna. Sean, take it out.
Sean, you
obviously reshape it again.
Sean, you're not alone. There are people here.
You're saying it out loud. You're not thinking it.
Grated cheese tastes stronger because a greater surface area of the cheese makes contact with your tongue. Now, just how great were the great train robbers?
Well, they're not that great because they got caught.
Well, I mean, they got so caught. They got caught almost immediately. Yeah. And they got caught in very stupid ways. Do you know how they were caught, really?
When they left the... well, in the film, anyway. That's all I know about it. In the film, when they left, there was a sort of... what's it called? Air traffic control tower. They left... Didn't they leave that in the film? Oh, I mixed it up with Herbie Rides Again.
Yeah. I think you may be. No, this was a train robbery, not a plane robbery.
Honestly, for a minute, I did think I knew what it was.
This was in Buckinghamshire in 1963, August the 8th, 1963, the Great Train Robbery. It was a lot of money. About £40 million worth in our terms.
Did they know it was on there, or did they get lucky?
Oh, no, they knew. It was planned. It was a travelling post office train, and it was £1 and £5 and £10 used notes that were on their way to be burned, so they felt like they were just liberating it, you know. But when they got caught, they went to this farm and played Monopoly using the stolen money as their Monopoly money, and then they cleared out and left their fingerprints over everything, over all the Monopoly set. And they were all, you know, they all had form. They were all, you know, known blaggers. So they were just rounded up, all 12 of the gang of 15. One was acquitted, 2 were never caught. They were pretty inept, is the answer, basically.
So why, that begs the question, why are they called great? Because of the amount of money they nicked?
I think because it was a train robbery, and there was a great train robbery in America. And in 1903, the first ever film that was a story rather than just a camera pointing at nature or people in a park, but actually a constructed narrative, a drama, was called The Great Train Robbery. So it was very famous. So when there was a train robbery and it was a big one, the word great naturally fitted in front of it. You know, it's just like one of those cliches that newspapers will go for. And they went for that one.
It just sounds like they stole the train, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
That would be impressive.
You can't
steal a train.
You can't steal a train.
No, well, that's because you can't go... It's got rails. You know where it's going to go. Yeah. You can go there more quickly or more slowly, but it's still going into King's Cross.
You can't. If you've got Gromit in the gang...
Yes. That's true.
He can lay track as he's going along.
Yeah.
Well,
Some
sort of Gromit-like escape for that would be a great train robbery.
That would. Who's the most famous of the great train robbers, would you say?
Ronnie Biggs.
Ronnie also had Ronnie Biggs, yeah. And what was his role? Was he the mastermind? Is that why he's the best known?
No.
No, he was such a small peg in the whole thing.
Was he the driver?
No, he wasn't even that. He was inside. He was doing a stretch for taking and driving away. And the mastermind of the entire event met him and said, I'm planning this blag.
I'm planning a game of Monopoly.
Yeah,
He's just got to pick something up on the way.
Yeah,
it's my set, I've lost all the fake money. And the only way of replacing it I can think of...
I've run Waddingtons, they didn't want to know. Get a new set, they said. Don't be ridiculous, I said.
Anyway, the mastermind was called Bruce Reynolds. And he said, if you can find me someone who can drive a train, a diesel train, I will cut you in on a big job that's going down.
You can I mean, that's not like someone who can sort of melt diamonds with their eyes. Someone who can drive a diesel. Apparently they exist somewhere.
But the amazing thing, David Mitchell, is that Biggs found this guy whose nickname was Old Pete or Stan Agate. No one knows who he was because he was the one who was never caught.
Was that Old Pete the train driver? I know.
Yeah. So his job...
After Casey Jones had turned him down.
Yeah. For being found, Ronnie Biggs got a share worth £147,000, which in today's money is £1.6 million. And all he had to do, Ronnie Biggs, was get this guy, Old Pete, to the scene. But this old Pete got to the train and said, I don't know how to drive that. Ronnie Biggs still got his share, but old Pete was useless. He couldn't drive a train. He'd been lying all the time.
I like the idea that old Pete's like those actors who put on their CV, yes, I can horse ride. Oh, yes, I can drive a train. I speak Mandarin, too. Train through China, no problem at all.
That's how he found him. He went through Spotlight. And the other, apparently, he was very well reviewed in Much Ado About Nothing last year.
And he's trained in modern dance.
Yeah.
That could come in handy. Well,
you sound like you're quite fond of them.
No, I'm not fond of them. They had a sort of mythic role.
Yes.
But I like the fact they were bunglingly incompetent.
Yes, yeah. They weren't as evil, perhaps, as they've been portrayed.
No, exactly.
Some people like villains. There's a cafe near me, and it does bangers and mash and old-fashioned English grub. And on the menus, they've got... One menu's got Sid James and Barbara Windsor in a Carry On film. And then there's Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, just dressed up in their overcoats. Yeah. And then on the third one is the Cray twins.
Blimey.
jerky cultural icons, great comedians of the 60s, and notorious maimers and murderers.
Yeah, that is odd, isn't it? It's very strange. Well, the great train robbers weren't particularly great. Most of them were caught because they left fingerprints on the Monopoly set at the safe house. From criminal bungling to a great scientific mystery, why did it take 300 years to give the giant tortoise a scientific name?
A scientific name?
Yeah, i.e. the Latin name. It turned out to be called Geochelonia, you know.
Is it because they just thought that was pretty good, giant tortoise?
We'll leave it with that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah?
no, I was going to say something about which now is unusable. I'm going to have to say it now.
Go on. Out with it, man.
They thought...
It's better be
They
good.
thought it was a normal tortoise, but closer, is what I was going to say. You see what I mean? But then I couldn't get that concept. It's like, would it be actually further away? And a normal one further away would be actually a minute one. Would they mistake a quite far away normal one for a miniaturised one that's a bit ordinary?
But the thing that you're saying is that the tortoise is big.
So it's just if it's a further away. If they say,
I don't like it. Oh, go that way.
yeah. If there was like a tortoise over there that was giant,
Yeah.
but for some reason thought it was just there, then I wouldn't think it was giant. I'd think it was just, oh, there's just one there. But it's just a normal tortoise there, nothing about that. Oh my God, it's over there and it's back!
It would have to be on a huge beach with no other points of reference.
Well, yes, exactly.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
Are they...
That's not the reason.
Are they,
Okay.
are they particularly litigious? Now, if you give me a name, I will sue you.
No, it wasn't that. It's a nice thought to get. No, they had another property which was most unfortunate for them to have.
What the tortoises did?
They were edible.
They were so edible. Anyone, I mean... they
Anyone who
were-
saw one couldn't stop
Yes.
to think of a name for it. They just had to eat it
The
straight
point-
away.
Really one of those...
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
they're called...
Do you know...
Get one, they're really very good.
There's no
We just call
Latin
them
name for the
dinner.
pistachio nut. Exactly the same way. No one can be bothered. Just shut up with your Latin. Eat them. They're brilliant.
I think that's what happened.
No
is
Latin name for Maltesers.
None of them made it. It's kind of true. None of them made it to London. None of them made it to Europe.
Now this time, we're going to take it and we'll take London
Tuck
down
it,
here.
leave it. No,
However,
I'm taking it back. People getting up in
Ferry coming into Dover, there's a bloke going... leaving the door where the tortoise is there.
all right, look, take 9 of them, we'll eat 8. Absolutely.
And then everyone's looking at it and going, come on.
And then the seas become... The days on end, the seas become, there's one tortoise left.
Yeah.
At the end.
Can you
Come on,
imagine?
sir. Come on, we'll go back. Let's just go back and get some more.
I'm not
Can you imagine the moment after they've eaten that last tortoise? They're sitting there thinking, we are twats.
Even on,
I'm too full.
even Darwin, on Darwin's last voyage. There were dozens. There were
He
dozens.
collected
of-
every species in the world and
Yeah.
he ate that one.
They had them all. They did.
Well,
I
I've
mean,
done
it
all
was-
those, done all the butterflies,
They-
done all the beetles. I'm eating that.
The only descriptions of them are comparing them to chicken, beef, mutton and butter and saying they're how much better they are than all of those things. No one who'd ever eaten tortoise had ever eaten anything better.
Why are they not
and the
farmed?
liver and the bone marrow, every part of it was unbelievably
Whereabouts
delicious.
are they from?
Well, from the tropics
Are
mostly.
there flights over there?
They are now protected. All 12
If they're
species.
that delicious, they can't be. Well, they just say, yeah, we've protected them. They're all in there. No need to look.
Filled up.
Yeah, they're fine.
There's a border around them, like North Korea.
Yeah. There's a big pile of shells, like those piles of tyres you see in a scrapyard.
But yeah, there were some that survived, however, and let me tell you about a very extraordinary
That
one.
bloke there, he's just befriending that one. Yeah, come over here, my pretty. I'm trying to think of a name for you. Get off.
But they are amazing animals, apart from how delicious they are. Adwaita died in 2006, and he was Clive of India's pet. There he is.
Oh, they're 200 years old or something.
255. He was born before Mozart, before the French Revolution, and his death was announced on CNN. I mean, that's a heck of a life,
And
isn't
you
it?
can list his achievements on the back of a stamp.
Well, why would he need to
Well, his
achieve
principal
that?
achievement is it wasn't
He lived 255 years. People think probably the oldest living creature because they don't live so long out of captivity like most animals, and he was, well cared for. That is a pretty astonishing
It is
lifespan.
quite... So it lived 255 years and is massive. I mean, I've achieved 50% of that. That's great.
There are 12 species of them, all of them endangered. Well,
They
one...
all taste nice?
Well, I don't know, but it's very sad that they so many were other species were, basically wiped out just because they were so lovely. Not only that, they were also used as water stores. It sounds a weird thing, but they have a special kind of internal bladder that stores water so perfectly that it's drinkable. When you slit them open to cook them, you also get, like a gallon of fresh water.
Wow.
So they would stack them up on boats, tons of them. They'd be stacked up, one on the other, and they couldn't move. And they didn't need to be fed for months, so that they actually contributed a lot to whaling and other things because they were used as a foodstuff and a water supply that was just kind of permanent.
So you've got the
on board.
water as well. And imagine if you smash the shell open, there's like a little toy in there, like a Kinder Egg. Like a little game, you've got to get the balls in the holes.
So how do they exist in the wild anyway, if they're so delicious and slow-moving and massive and useful?
They didn't have any natural predators until man discovered them, basically.
Right. So they were evolutionarily complacent.
They were exactly like a lot of island species. They're a lot like that. And it's only man who crosses islands in the way we do
Like all those
who does it.
ridiculous flightless birds on New Zealand.
Yeah.
Essentially, they got lazy.
Yeah.
They got lazy. What's the point in
caterpillars.
flying? Now, some of them go, we'll need it one day. I bet we'll need it one day. Nah. You're too anal, you are. Just walk around, it's easier.
Yeah. Anyway, despite being discovered in 1535, giant tortoises weren't properly catalogued by science until the early 19th century because they were so delicious that no samples ever made it back home. Now, to another puzzling giant. If a giant panda does a handstand in front of you, what's he trying to tell you?
Put some money in the hat.
Nice thought.
There's a human in a costume.
Pandas...
Go away, come nearer, be afraid of me, leave me alone.
Yes, it's that kind of thing. They have to eat 12 hours a day, so they haven't got much time for rutting and fighting. So the best they can do is they can urinate and mark out their territory. And the handstand is one of their most popular methods of urination. Would you like to see a panda?
I would definitely.
Doing a handstand and urinating.
I'd quite like to see a bloke doing it,
Yeah.
actually.
There he goes.
Here we are. He's rather missed the tree, unfortunately.
It's not a very accurate thing.
No, he's supposed to hit the tree, but he's
good, this
missing.
is going to run and run. Excellent.
Yeah, it's on a loop.
For a creature that is incredibly busy eating, there are more efficient ways of pissing than that.
Yeah, I suppose.
know,
The point is, you see, the higher you piss, the more dominant you are. So the other male comes along, and if he sniffs the wee quite low down on the tree, he thinks, it's a wuss. But if it's very, very high, he goes, whoa, I'm not going anywhere near that.
That's a wuss.
I'm afraid it won't
apparently.
because he missed the tree, I'm afraid, this one.
Well, he's trying to piss on the cameraman. He's doing what
Yeah.
Get off my land.
Yeah.
It's not really a proper handstand, though, is it?
Well, no,
'Cause he's leaning against the tree. I think that's cheating. I was expecting a proper performing
Oh, I'm so
panda.
sorry. Well, they are, as you probably know, an endangered species.
Are they delicious?
Dear, let's hope not.
Only the ears.
Oh, no, please, little Pandy. The odd thing is, it's a fairly recent discovery, San Diego Zoo, is that they don't need Viagra, they don't need this whole idea of, gosh, how do you get two pandas in captivity to breed? It's discovered if they swap cages and smell each other's secretions and wee, they're up for it. So they really don't breed any more reluctantly than any other type of bear. They're actually perfectly good. So maybe there's hope for
what
the future.
was all that fuss about?
Well, for
All
years
those
we
years?
didn't know how to get them to do it in public, in zoos and things like that. We weren't providing them with the territorial. So that's why these discoveries are very important, that these things that look quite comic, like the peeing or whatever, are actually vital to the survival of their species.
They look fake, don't they? I
Yeah, they really do.
Of all the animals,
Yeah,
they
so
look
do.
fake.
Yeah.
He looks like a bloke in a bear suit. Don't give it away. My name's Jeff.
Yeah.
It would take me quite a few years before I was prepared to have sex in a zoo.
Yeah. Exactly.
Remember, this is a world in which it's not creatures of your species who'd be watching. So you're in a cage, invited to have sex. It's only pandas watching. It's not people. Would you feel embarrassed in front of the pandas?
I don't like to take my pants off in front of a cat.
I'm sure you don't like to take your pants off. Do you actually mind?
I do. He goes out of the door, then the pants come off.
Dear me.
I usually put a tea towel over the goldfish.
Right. Good. Nice to know. Thanks. If a panda does a handstand in front of you, he's telling you you're on his land. They do this to get their scent markings as high up a tree as possible. And with that, it's time for the great test of general ignorance, so fingers on buzzers, if you please. Now, how did Catherine the Great die?
Oh, it's quite famous how she died. Fortunately, I don't know.
She would?
She didn't have sex with a horse.
Correct.
She...
Died on a commode. Oh, no, that was Elvis.
Oh, dear. Joe. You're on fine form. Well, commode, Lou. There are those, of course. Elvis Presley was said to have died that way. George II died at stool. But stool? At stool is how they described it, rather splendidly, straining away. But no, Catherine, she did have a stroke on the commode, but she died in bed.
Is that a euphemism?
Many
Yes.
ways.
She did have
I'm having
horses.
a stroke on the commode. No, we'll leave you there, love, for a minute.
She did have sex with horses, though.
No, she didn't. No.
That horse's head is too small.
Yeah, they did paint them like that, didn't they?
really
It's a
odd.
very odd 18th century thing, painting horses with small heads.
She never had sex with one horse.
Not... no, it
Donkey?
was sort of made up, nor a donkey. She did with lots of courtiers. She was a very sexy actress.
Not quite the same, though, is it?
No, it's not, no. But the point... Her son, Paul, who hated her, became Paul I, the Tsar.
He spread that rumour,
He
did
spread
he?
the rumour, as did... And the French were also responsible for spreading it. They had...
My mum, right?
That's
What
why
she's done, right? My mum. Never believe it. She's having sex with a horse.
That's why I'm so good at show jumping.
Anyway, despite all the salacious gossip, Catherine died in bed where she was being cared for following a stroke. In cold weather, where does most of your heat escape from?
Oh,
Your head.
What?
Your head.
Oh, really? Yes.
It's supposed to be 75%. That's what
No,
I've been told.
it
Goes
isn't.
out of your head.
Is it not just the fact that your head is a bit of you that is more sort of naked?
Well,
than the
that's
rest
right,
of
if it
you?
is, but only 10% of your heat. You're actually, if your arm was exposed, more would escape from your arm than from your head.
If people went around with bare buttocks a lot, they would say, in the cold, you really should put on a buttock
Exactly.
hat. Because you lose 90% of your heat through your buttocks. No, ridiculous. No need these days to cover your buttocks all the time. In the same way, everyone used to wear hats. Now they go around bareheaded a lot.
Yeah.
I'm glad my... well, it sounds wrong, this, but I'm glad my grandmother's dead. Because that would blow... blow her mind. I'm not glad she's dead.
No.
She's dead. Well, it's sad she's dead, but she died a long time ago, so this doesn't affect it at all.
No, you're glad she isn't here to hear that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I also, at the same time, it was a shame she never saw me on a plane sitting next to Lionel Blair. That would have been a lovely moment. She
What happened to you?
She died before I was able to tell her that. Because she would have seen
She
that
never
as
knew.
the absolute pinnacle of human achievement. So,
And so it is.
yeah, it was very nice.
There's nothing special about your head and heat loss. On a cold day, you would lose more heat through an exposed leg or arm than a bare head. What was the lingua franca of ancient Rome?
Great balls of fire.
Dutch. 'Cause I knew that's not going to come up.
Yeah, very good,
See,
yeah.
that's where you've got to think, Joe. You've got to think what they wouldn't put up.
cheers, Sean.
Pretender.
Latin.
Oh!
I did that deliberately.
Yeah, I know.
At this
She's
point, it makes...
going for the record.
Yeah, it
Makes
makes
no
sense.
difference.
You're
So-
Yeah, you
Go
might as well.
at
It's like
romance.
shooting the moon when you play hearts or one of those
Oh, it's
games,
such a brilliant game.
isn't it?
Yeah.
What does lingua franca mean?
When people get together, it's a language that is commonly used as like everybody's second language, as it were.
Is it Greek?
Yes, it is Greek. It's the right answer. Greek is the language that people would use in Rome if they weren't Latin speakers. Finally, how many men have been president of the United States?
Oh, it's 46 or something?
Well, shall we ask the great man himself? Shall we ask the current president?
Is he here?
Is he here tonight? Ladies and gentlemen.
What a waste of a guest.
I'm glad we've given up my seat. I think he sat in the audience for this one.
Here he is, the president, but which number of the United States? He's here to tell us.
I thank President Bush for his service to our nation. As well as the generosity and cooperation he has shown throughout this transition. 44 Americans have now taken the presidential oath.
He's wrong. He made a mistake.
He's only been on once and he's wrong already.
He is currently known as the 44th, just as Bush was known as the 43rd, but they aren't. Bush was the 42nd and he's the 43rd.
Oh.
Do you know why this is?
One of them was invisible.
Was there someone who was president for a bit and then stopped being president? Someone else was president and came back?
There was one non-consecutive president,
Right.
who was the 22nd and the 24th.
Why did they count him as two? That doesn't make any sense. Yet they count Clinton as one.
Yeah, because his terms are
Consecutive
consecutive. This one was the 22nd, then Benjamin Harrison was president, and then he was the 24th. This was Grover Cleveland.
I think if I was doing that, if I was setting that system up, I would have gone for the number of different men. Right?
Yes.
I would say, you know, that you get a new number if you're a different man.
Person, exactly.
Not if there was a gap.
No, I know, but there's only ever been one gap, and for some reason they didn't do that. So when he took his second oath, he was called the 24th president, although he was the same man who'd been the 22nd.
Well, he was actually Stalin.
He was, he does look a bit like him.
So not only did he rule Russia, kill millions of people, he was two presidents of the United States.
It's a weird system,
That's
isn't
a CV.
it? It's quite a bombshell.
Now we know what he was doing in between presidents.
Yeah, exactly. Barack Obama is, in fact, the 43rd person to become President of the United States because Grover Cleveland held the position twice with a 4-year break in between, making him the 22nd and the 24th President of the United States. It's a great shame, but that is the end of the show, and time to look at the scores. Well, my word, my word, my word, my word. In first place, with 4 points, it's David Mitchell. In second place, with +2, is Alan Davis. In third place, with -6, Sean Locke.
Oh, thank you very much.
But in fourth place, with -10, it's Barack Obama. Barack, where are you? -10, which means tonight in fifth place, with a very impressive -46, Joe Brand. So it only remains to say thank you from David, Sean, Joe, Alan and me, and to leave you with this thought from the great Jack Handy. Before you criticise someone, you should walk a mile in their shoes. That way, when you criticise them, you'll be a mile away, and you'll have their shoes. Good night.
Can Claire escape her destiny? College life brings temptation and hazards next. Heroes continues here on BBC Two.